Hey, what's up motivators? Taren here. So often athletes who get into endurance sports get a little bit of a taste for a good race, then want to step it up. When they seek better performance, the way that they do so is almost always with training more. Unfortunately, this often leads to worse performance instead of better. Why is this? More isn't always more in endurance sports. A study was even done on Ironman athletes who you would expect to have to train an enormous amount, but the study surprisingly showed that the athletes who trained the least were actually just as fast or even faster than the athletes who trained the most. Today, we're going to talk about the biggest time wasters in endurance sports that you can cut out so that you can get faster with fewer training hours, allowing more people to experience excellent performance and being the person that they want to be. My name is Taren Gazelle. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company Motive offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today. The first area that runners, triathletes, duathletes, swimrunners, and cyclists waste training hours is by starting a plan too far out. Fact of the matter is that you shouldn't be starting a proper structured training plan leading into a race where you're building up week after week after week that is taking a lot of time to do until just the last few months before the race. Really, year-round, you should be working on becoming a strong athlete, a balanced athlete, and just building the basic skills to be able to start a training plan. So for a guideline, if you are doing a race less than 2 hours, you really only need about 2 to 3 months to prepare for this, assuming that you have a basic level of fitness coming into the training plan. If you're racing a 2 to 4 hour race, no more than 3 to 4 months is necessary. A 4 to 6 hour race, about 4 to 5 months is a good guideline. And for a race of 6 hours or more, 6 months is the maximum that you need. As opposed to preparing for a race 18 months, 12 months, 10 months ahead of time, you really only need a small amount of time, with the rest of the year being at a much lower level, being much more balanced and lighter training so you can come into that training plan ready to tear it apart. We actually have a free tool on our website that we will link to in the description below, where you can go and put in the goal that you have with the race that you have and the current level of fitness that you have, and it'll spit out approximately how many hours a week of training you'll need and how many months of good training that you'll need to reach that goal. Hint, it's far less than most people expect. The second area that endurance athletes waste time training is by spending too much time endurance training and not enough time doing strength. There was actually a study done that looked at what would happen if you just added on strength to a current training plan versus replacing some of your current training plan with strength training. So this meant not actually training any more, but instead actually training for endurance less and just replacing that time that you were already spending with strength training. In the study, they replaced up to 19% of the run training of already elite athletes with explosive strength training, and this actually improved running performance. And what has been shown in study after study is that it's not necessarily just adding on strength training to a current plan and adding in more hours. It's actually by replacing some of your current training and not even training anymore that is going to result in the best performance improvements.
We need to take a quick second to thank a sponsor. Athletic Greens is a product that I use literally every single day. I like Athletic Greens as a replacement for a traditional multivitamin. Athletic Greens is made with whole foods. It contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, and because it is made from whole foods and you can mix it up as a greens powder in a shake or whatever you want, it's much easier for your body to actually absorb. If you go to athleticgreens.com/Taren, you will get a free year's supply of vitamin D with your first purchase and 5 free travel packages. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Taren to get yourself some Athletic Greens. Everyone that I know that's tried it has absolutely loved it, so you will too. Give it a shot.
The third area that endurance athletes waste time training is by spending too much time training hard. Now this admittedly isn't necessarily just additional time training, but it's additional time spent training hard. It's a much higher mental toll on our body and our brain to train hard than it is to train easy. And when I mean easy, I mean really easy. There was an excellent study done comparing polarized training, where the vast majority of the training is done at a very low intensity level, much lower than you would actually self-describe as a low intensity level. And they compared it to threshold, high intensity, or high volume training. And threshold, high intensity, and high volume training are what most people actually do. Meanwhile, they think that they're doing polarized training. The reason that people think they're doing polarized training but are actually doing more of a threshold, a high intensity, or high volume training method is because the low intensity training loads in the polarized training method are so very low that it's actually hard for people to work out that easy. But when they looked at the results of the polarized versus all of these other training methods, it was very clear that the polarized method resulted in the greatest improvements in the most key variables of endurance performance in even well-trained endurance athletes. This isn't just for hobbyist performance, this is to get you excellent performance no matter your skill level. In fact, about 75 to 80% of your total training hours should be spent at such a low intensity level that you should actually feel guilty for how easy you ran or cycled or swam. The fourth area that endurance athletes waste training hours is by not having a nutrition strategy that pairs with every single workout that they perform to enhance the training effect of that specific workout. And as you know, the workouts themselves would be very different. A top-end workout would be very, very intense, while an endurance building workout would be very low intensity but quite long. Fact of the matter is that most athletes use the same nutrition strategy regardless of what the intention of the workout is. The biggest detriment to this is in the endurance building category. There was actually a study done where they looked at the performance of Ironman triathlon athletes, and they looked at what were the key differentiators between good performance and bad performance. And one of the biggest key drivers of good performance was maximal fat oxidation, how much fat an athlete was able to burn every single minute that they were in that race. Athletes who were able to burn more fat as fuel were able to access more energy and go faster for longer, slowing down quite a bit less by the end of the race. But what happens with most endurance athletes is they fuel with carbohydrates for those peak level workouts, and then they fuel with the same refined carbohydrates and sugary drinks for the endurance building workouts, shutting off their fat metabolism and blunting their body's ability to learn how to use fat as fuel. The fifth and final area that endurance athletes waste training hours is by not taking enough days off, just literally training too much, training too frequently. This is a chart of the heart rate variability of an athlete who we work with very closely, who monitored their HRV to determine when their body was able to actually absorb training and when it needed rest. And as you can see, even during good, well-managed training loads that were supervised by an exercise physiologist and one of the best coaches in the world, there were times that the 7-day readiness to train dipped under the level at which the athlete could actually absorb training. So during those times, the athlete would actually take days off. And this was an athlete who race after race after race set PBs that they never imagined actually possible. What we actually recommend to the athletes on our app is that if they complete 85% or more of their scheduled workouts, they are going to reach their goals. There are going to be days that you need some rest. Thank you for watching, Motivator. We have links over here to videos where you can get a sense of how much you need to train for races like Ironmans and marathons, and then see just how little you actually need to train compared to probably how much you think you need to train. There is also a link in the description below to that free calculator on our website that you can use. And if you want a well-balanced training plan designed specifically for real people who want to do amazing things and do it in the midst of being busy and having jobs and having an appropriate amount of training provided to them with whatever your goal is and whatever your current level of fitness, check out the link to our training app in the description below. Later, Motivators.